Hello my fellow freedom builders and welcome back to the channel. A while back I did some videos about the Nikola Motor Company and today I'll do a little follow-up because I was a bit rough with Nikola and now their earnings has come out and Trevor Milton has been so kind to give a huge interview to a channel I'll show you in a second. A very good interview where the interviewer got down deep into some of the details that I have been wondering myself. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to quickly run over the earnings and then I'm going to go through the interviews. I have 4 pages here filled with notes. Not that I'm going to read all of them to you, but there are something that really puzzles me still with this Nikola and Trevor Milton setup. So strap your seatbelts because this is going to be a ride through a huge interview. Very well. Let's go straight to the earnings. Now the earnings was somewhat disappointing. I'm not really sure how they could be disappointing because we have a company here burning cash and not selling anything. That's pretty much the scenario. They promise us that they are going to sell a lot, but right now they're not selling anything. As we have joked about before, Tesla actually has more cars flying in space than Nikola has trucks out with the customers. And well, that is one. So what we can see here is that the earnings was a loss of $86.6 million. And that is compared to $16.7 million last year. That is an earnings per share of minus $0.33 compared to minus $0.06 last year. So that was quite a lot. And if we look right now, the market is not open, but when we look at the price here, it ended around $39 yesterday. And in the aftermarket, when the numbers come out and they had their conference call, it seemed like the investors were not impressed at all. So the price in the aftermarket dropped and ended down at $32. And if we're looking at the chart here, I don't have the aftermarket pricing here, but we will soon see the market opens in about 20 minutes or so. That would bring the price down around this blue line. And I've said for a while that I think a fair price of Nikola should be down around 10 to 15. So let's see if it gets down there. All right, that was the numbers part. I'm not going to go in depth with any more of that. You can hear the teleconference or the conference call online. It's all over the place if you Google that. And let's get to the interview because that is actually a bit more of an interesting part. Now the interview is done by this guy. I think his name is, oh yeah, here, Jason. And he has this channel called The Week in Startups. It's actually a very good channel and quite a lot larger than mine. And he's doing some great interviews. And I really recommend that you sit through all 1 hour and 15 minutes here. But if you don't have the time, I'll go through some of the main topics here because they're really something here that made me scratch my head a bit. So let's get right to it. Now, first of all, we have, I'll just jump around in it and I'll put some timestamps here on the screen so you can see where you should go into the interview if you want to hear exactly what has been said. But around 20 minutes into the interview, they come to the pricing of hydrogen. Because if you remember, not long ago, ARK Invest that I did some videos about, they did a calculation as to what the price of Nikola, including the costs, you can see here hydrogen, electricity cost here. You can see that over a time span, a lifespan of a truck, they had the hydrogen cost at $230,000 and the electricity cost only at $73,000, meaning that there were no way on earth that the hydrogen could be competitive. And it seems like they have fixed it now because here in the interview, oh, this is not the interview, this comes here. Here in the interview, we actually hear that Trevor Milton just casually says that the price of hydrogen used to be, or is as of right now, somewhere between $14 and $16 per kilogram of hydrogen. And on 1 kilo of hydrogen, you drive 8 miles. in a truck and 40 miles in a car. So what he says is that they have now brought that down to $3 to $4 per kilogram. And that is quite a lot. That is actually something like 80% cut in cost of hydrogen, which is a revolution. Now, how? Jason asked. And the simple answer is mass production. Because all of the other hydrogen producers in the entire world has been stupid and dumb. I think that's actually the exact word he's using. So they have not been standardizing. So what Nikola has been they have been the first to do is they have standardized it all. For instance, they have taken the price of the large hydrogen trucking station down from $50 million each down to $15 million per station. All right. So by magic trick, and before actually building pretty much any of these, or at least starting to standardizing, they have on paper, in theory, brought down the production cost here. And to be honest, I was a bit baffled here. How can you just state that you take a hydrogen technology, things that producers all over the world have spent billions and billions of dollars on, and then saying, yeah, well, just by mass production, we just cut 80% of the cost. I kind of feel, without being a hydrogen expert, that if this was so easy, just produce more of it, then pretty much every hydrogen car truck producer in the world with an Excel spreadsheet could figure out how to do it, and they would have been doing it for a very long time. But the funny thing is, because I was doing a bit of calculating, and the funny thing is that if this is true, then they bring this price down by 80%, meaning that they are down around $50,000, maybe $55,000 in hydrogen cost. Funny enough, just with a good little margin, cheaper than the electricity cost. So you see, that was a nice little trick. We'll just mass produce, and voila, we'll have a cheaper hydrogen, and that's it. To be honest, I don't buy it. I simply don't buy it. If this was true, and it could be very nice if it was. If this is true, this would revolutionize the entire world. And he's just mentioning in a little side sentence and say, oh yeah, we actually brought it down to $4, actually a bit below $4, no, $3. So just in one sentence, he's cutting 33% extra of the price here. And it is just done in such a way that it smells like, I don't know, it doesn't smell real. So this one, I simply don't buy it. And I would have wanted, or liked the interviewer to dig a bit deeper into this, because it sounds too good to be true, and I haven't seen any proof of it at all. By the way, the earnings and the liquidity of the Nikola has come up a lot of times, and Trevor Milton keeps saying that they have enough cash and they are very liquid and so on. Yes, they have somewhere around $800 million to $1 billion in cash, and that sounds like a lot. But if each of these stations, if let's say they could get this price of this station down to $15 million per station, and maybe even some of them they can get cheaper because they're smaller and not meant only for semi-trucks and so on, but let's just stick with the $15 million per station. And Trevor Milton, he states in the interview that right now they are in the process of building 1,000 of these. Well, 1,000 times $15 million is $15 billion, and they have less than $1 billion. And they are starting a manufacturing plant which, by their own estimations, will cost $600 to $700 million to build, which means they have a couple of $100 million left, and this network will cost them $15 billion. Now, some of you have said to me that, of course, they will just take in other investors. They will have other people build this. Yes, that's fair enough. But in the calculations that Trevor Milton gives, and one of the reasons why he thinks that their company is such a revolution is that they make all the money from the beginning of the product to the end of the product. So they make all the money. He says they are a lot smarter than the diesel selling companies or the diesel truck companies, because they only make money on the truck. And Trevor Milton and the company, they are making money on all the hydrogen. Yeah, well, if you're taking in an investor to build all the hydrogen station, then it would be reasonable to assume that they would be making money on the hydrogen and not Nikola. And that will make their entire calculation completely wrong as to how profitable they will be per truck over the lifetime. In the interview, he actually also mentioned the many thousand trucks they have in pre-order. And as I mentioned in another video, that is simply ridiculous, because it is pre-orders where people didn't have to deposit anything. And I would say if they get around 40% of these orders actually fulfilled, they should be more than lucky. All right, back to the interview. This was around the 20 minutes and 22 minutes. He also states some numbers, and that is because they have this Anheuser-Busch deal where they are going to buy some trucks and they put some hydrogen stations at the different locations where these Anheuser-Busch brewery trucks are going to run. And that sounds fair enough. What he states here around 26 minutes is that they have, and I quote, billions and billions and billions and billions in contracts with this sort of setup. So that is 4 times billions in plural here. So that must be, I don't know how many billions, but as far as I know, the Anheuser-Busch contract is only 800 millions. And then there are some smaller, but billions and billions and billions and billions in contract. I'm sorry to say, but he starts to sound a bit like Donald Trump talking about the billions and billions and billions here. So I don't know how many billions. I haven't been able to find any real proof about something up towards 4 or 5 or 10 billions. I don't know how many billions he's talking about here. All right. Around 31 minutes in, he's talking about that Nikola will be the first battery truck and they will beat Tesla, and they might. I'm not even sure how the different timelines are, but he is saying, and this should not be all Nikola critique, he is saying that they are using the OEMs, meaning that they're using Iveco, the truck manufacturer, because that they have all the expertise and Nikola don't have the expertise. Let's just forget that in the beginning of this journey with Nikola, Trevor Milton actually said that they would be making everything themselves because they didn't trust anyone else. But all of a sudden they changed a strategy and now they're working with OEMs. And I think actually that is a great strategy. What he's saying is that they are ready. I don't really understand what he's saying there around 31 minutes, but he's mentioned thousands and thousands of trucks. So I'm not sure if they're planning on actually making thousands of trucks this year, or if he's saying that they'll just be ready to make thousands of trucks. However, the very good interviewer, Jason here, he asks about this OEM, because there are also some downsides with having, for instance, Iveco or other sub-manufacturers producing your trucks. And one of the things that he's saying is that you are dependent on the OEM, on, for instance, Iveco, that nothing goes wrong with them. If you have it in-house, like Tesla, like they do, you can kind of control the entire process. And of course, there can be a lot of problems. We have seen that with Tesla, but they have fixed them and they are kind of ready to produce. But when trusting an OEM, there are so many things that are out of your hands. So what Trevor answers here, I'm not really sure what to think of that. That's around the 37-minute mark. He's saying, yeah, well, that is because the other producers that have used OEMs have been greedy. So they don't want to have an inventory. They are just saying every time we get some orders, we order it with the OEM, for instance, Iveco, and then they can deliver. But if there are delays in the process at the OEM, then that falls back on me. So he said, I'm not that greedy. I'm just going to build a huge inventory. And as I hear that, because he have stated all the time that the reason why they were competitive was that it was a lean organization without a huge inventory. But what he's saying here is that they are going to build a huge inventory of all the different models, because they don't want to be dependent on if something is delayed at the OEM. I'm not sure. He's not saying how much a huge inventory is, but if they are right about the 14,000 pre-orders, then I would suggest that something like 5 to 10% of the entire order book should be in inventory, meaning that they would just have around 700 to 1,400 trucks in inventory all time, simply just to make sure that nothing is delayed. That sounds like an expensive inventory, if you ask me. But then again, maybe I am just a bit too critical here. You can judge for yourself, look around the 37 minutes. Now, at 40 minutes in the interview, Jason is asking Trevor a very good question. It has nothing to do with the business, so actually it doesn't matter for the investment case. But he's asking something that I have been wondering myself. He's asking, why did you name the company Nikola when one of your closest competitors is called Tesla? So that people, every time they think of Nikola Tesla, they get both of the companies. And Trevor Milton, he says, oh no, it had nothing to do with Tesla. It was just because Nikola Tesla was such a big idol to him. And yeah, I think he gets that explained really, really badly, because there is no doubt that this was a copy-paste of Tesla's name without copying their name. But you cannot say Nikola without thinking Tesla, and you cannot say Tesla without thinking Nikola if you just know a bit about the very legendary inventor Nikola Tesla. So yeah, well, he says in the interview himself, and Trevor Milton, that if he had done it for that reason, it would have been I think he's called it a prick move, and I think he's spot on there. I think this is a prick move. So, but that has nothing to do with the investment case. Now, if you scroll on to 46 minutes into the interview, we get to something that really blew my mind. I had to listen to this over 4, 5, 6 times simply to make sure that I didn't misunderstand what Trevor Milton was saying. Because what he's saying is, or what he's asked is, why they were building the Badger, you know, the pickup truck that is supposed to be competing with the Cybertruck from Tesla. And well, in one interview, and this is not the interview, but in another interview I heard, he explained it by saying that they were just building a prototype of something, just at a concept car. It was never meant to be a product that should be sold, but it was purely for testing out some engineering, and I completely get that. But when they saw how ugly the Cybertruck was, that is his words, when they saw how ugly the Cybertruck was, they decided, oh, we can do better than that. And that's how they decided on building the Badger. That's one interview. Now, this interview, he explains it in another way. Because what he's saying is that he wants to be like Apple. Because in Apple, all the retail consumers, like 90% of the population of a country, can have an Apple product, an iPhone, an iPad, a MacBook, whatever, in their hands, and he thinks that builds a good brand among in the public. What he's saying is that the semi-truck, it's only about 5 to 10% of the entire population that has any interest in semi-trucks, so they are building the trucks to make money. But what he's saying is that they are building the Badger simply to build a brand among the consumer. And what he's saying directly is that he's going for the people with the Robinhood portfolios, because they would never buy their stocks if it was only trucks, because who is interested in trucks? No, we need a Badger so that we can get a hype running with the Robinhood investors. And again, if you're not located in the United States, if you're here in Denmark or somewhere in Europe, Robinhood is a broker that is mainly focused on retail amateur investors. And they have been known for all of these hype stocks, the EV stocks and so on. So what he's actually saying here is that the truck is built to make money. The Badger is built because who else should hype our stock? That's actually what he's saying here. And as I said, I had to scroll back, to rewind a couple of times to hear, did he actually say that? So what he's actually saying is that by getting these people in, the Robinhood portfolios, that is what is building the valuation of the company. Wait, what? So he does not think that the valuation is built by producing a product where he's saying they're going to make a ton of money. No. The valuation of the company is built by producing a company that some young retail investors or day traders think is cool, so they will hype the stock, and that is how you produce valuation for a company. Give me a break. I've never heard anything like this. I know he's not the CEO anymore, but he is the spokesperson for the company. And to say something like this, then he takes a bit back and say, oh no, because by the OEM, we are also going to make money on this one. But the first thing that came out of his mouth is, this is where we make the money. This is where we build the brand. So there are some Robinhood portfolios that will build the valuation of the company. Please feel free to go to 46 minutes of this interview to see if I have misunderstood it. I sincerely hope that it was my ears that played tricks on me and this is not what he said. Because if it is the most crazy thing I have ever heard from the founder and chairman of the board and former CEO of a company. I was completely shocked. All right, let's go on. Because then they start to talk about batteries. We are around 51 and a half minutes into the interview here. And what he's saying is that why would you want to spend money making your own battery? Because they're talking about Tesla and then they are building their own batteries. And what Trevor Milton is saying is that is a stupid move from Tesla, because you're not earning enough money on batteries. Samsung and Panasonic and all of these companies are putting billions and billions of dollars into this battery development project. So why would you do it? That would simply be a stupid move to develop your own battery. Well, if we just take a look back here. Tesla has for the last 1.5 years been telling us about that they were building their own battery and that it would be twice as good as Tesla's. It would take up half the space. It would have more than double the recharging cycles, and it would cost only half. When challenged on this, and he's not challenged on this in this interview, that is actually one of the only things I think Jason here needed to dive more into, because I would like, if I had been Jason, I would challenge Trevor on this, because he has been saying that they would beat Tesla by several miles here in the invention of new batteries. And the thing is that Tesla is developing new batteries. We don't know exactly what they can do, but we can follow a paper trail. We can see what sort of companies they are acquiring. We can see some of the white papers that are coming from some of the researchers that indicates that they might introduce some solid state batteries and so on. So we get a lot of indirect information that a lot is going on in Tesla. But with Nikola, there's nothing. And when asked in the beginning, he said, well, they were developing. And when asked more about it, he said, oh no, well, they were not developing, but they had acquired a researcher team. And in a later interview, I heard him say, no, they had been approached by a researcher team. And I'm not sure really what the real explanation is, but apparently they have some sort of revolutionary battery. And every single interview I have seen with the best battery experts in the world, working in all the biggest universities with research in this, they simply say, well, if he has such a battery, we have never heard about it. We don't know how it should be built. They know all the researchers, they know all the facilities where such batteries can be built, and none of them have heard anything. So where's the new battery tech, Trevor Milton? I would really, really like to see that. And the funny thing is that he's making a bit of a joke about Tesla making their own batteries because you're not making so much money. And then Jason, the interviewer, asked, well, isn't it just a question about the mass production of it? Because then they can push the prices down and make a better battery. And Trevor says, no, that's not it. The Samsung and Panasonic have tried that, and that's not it. Well, the funny thing is that it is the same logic that Trevor just used when he talked about they cutting 80% of the price of hydrogen. That, well, just mass producing, that would simply cut the costs. Even though that all the big hydrogen car producers have tried cutting the cost for years, then Trevor Milton not building a single manufacturing plant yet, they simply just cut the cost by mass producing. But with the battery tech and Tesla building it, then that is not really the case, apparently. So that's another thing that made me scratch my head a bit. Then the rest of the interview, because this is around 52 minutes, and if you want to know a bit more about Trevor Milton, from around 55 minutes, I actually think it is very interesting, because at that point, Trevor is asked what he has done before. And he gets on some rambling about he started 5 companies and they were simply too successful. There was too much demand for the product, so they didn't succeed. And he was building a new Amazon, but he was just located in the wrong part of the country. Otherwise, he could easily have been funded by $10 billion and so on. Well, I shouldn't say if he could or could not have. But at least now he's building this hydrogen company that, as I mentioned in the other video, actually started by being a compressed natural gas revolution, and all of a sudden it was hydrogen. And then when Tesla also came into the truck space, they also had a revolutionizing battery technology that no one seems to know anything about. So it is a bit confusing. Now, at 1 hour and 1 minute, Trevor Milton says something that I completely agree with. He has this quote that he usually says to people that goes like this: you cannot be environmental sustainable if you're not financial sustainable. And I completely agree with him. You cannot have a company that builds an environmental sustainable product, or you cannot save the world and the environment if your company is broke. I'm not sure that he was talking about Nikola here, but what I can't help thinking is that with the big amount of money that he needs, I'm not sure his company is financially sustainable. I could be wrong. Then again, but all of the signs simply are just not pointing in the direction of them being financially sustainable. So the question is, can they be environmental sustainable? That is a good part. The last part here I have of the interview is actually that around 1 hour and 2 minutes, he is pressured a bit on why he would be selling $10 million worth of stocks. Sorry, not, yes, I think $10 million worth of stocks, yes. And to that, he gives some answer about that, well, he was set at $1 in salary, so the board thought that he should give up some of his power in the company, and by that getting some money so he shouldn't go around thinking about paying rent and so on. And that can be fair enough. I think his answer here was a bit vague. And he was also, because Jason asked, well, then don't you believe in the company? Oh yes, I believe completely in the company. And it actually ends up by him saying that he was planning on buying more stocks now. I'm not sure if that is from the $10 million or what it is, but as far as I can tell right now, Trevor Milton is owning around 30% of the company. But at around 1 hour and 6 minutes in this interview, he says that he will be buying up so that he owns up to 35%. So he'll be buying 5% extra of this company that is right now. Let's just have a quick look at the market cap. Yes, here we go in the Stockopedia platform. We have a market cap around 12 billion euros. So that is a bit more in dollars. That must be around $14 billion. They have a market cap on right now. So if Trevor Milton should buy 5% more of the company, he should end up paying $700 million for that, at least at the current price. Of course, it could be that he hopes it drops down to $5 to $10 again so he can buy up. I'm not sure about that. But it's just to say that if he's right, that he would be buying up so that he'll get up around 35% in ownership share again, he would have, at the current price, to come up with $700 million. And he just got $10 million out, where, as far as I can tell, he spent quite a lot of it at one big house and in the state he lives. So he's nowhere near having $700 million. So I'm not sure how he would do that. All of his net worth is actually tied up in Nikola stocks right now. So if you want to buy more Nikola stocks, I'm not sure where he would get that money. And I sat there with the feeling that this was simply just an automatic answer, because it's always a really, really bad sign when the large insiders, the CEO, the chairman of the board and so on, the founder, when they start out the entire venture just dumping stocks, especially when the company is in lack of liquidity, and then they have to pay the CEO $10 million simply for some of his stocks. So I think this is some kind of way to explain why on earth he was doing this, and then saying, oh yes, but it was just temporary, my plan is to buy up so I own 35% again. That seems like a bit of a far-fetched vision, coming up with $700 million for that. But then again, he could be lucky and win the lottery or whatever. So this is about it. I should say that there's another channel. I'll just link to that below. It's a girl called Jessica Kirsch, and she actually took the time to go out to a place because, as you know, Nikola stock was dropping and has been dropping for a while, and all of a sudden they came out and said now they were breaking ground for the first manufacturing site. And they did that, and she went out to the site where they were supposed to be starting a new manufacturing plant, or at least building it, and there were nothing out there. As you can see, she is just filming around. These piles of dirt is where they have been breaking ground, but there is nothing out here. And not in this interview, but in another interview, Trevor Milton said, yeah, well, there's a lot of work before you start building such a plant, and I completely agree with him. The thing is that what he accidentally says is that they don't have the all the clearance, all the licenses to build here, so they actually started breaking ground, cutting the ribbon and all that sort for their new manufacturing plant without having the license, and they were not allowed to build here yet. So that seems a bit strange, and it could lead my attention to the fact that the stock has dropped from an almost 100 down to the high 20s here, and that they needed some sort of publicity stunt and saying, hey, yeah, let's drive a couple of trucks out here, a couple of tractors and a big tent, and saying, now we are starting. And then when this girl, Jessica, she goes out there, there's simply nothing. So I'll look forward to see her, to see her report in the future, to see if they actually start building anywhere in an anywhere near future here. So that's about it for now. I know it was a bit of rambling, but there was simply so much in this interview that puzzled me and that didn't make sense. But if you are sitting there with some knowledge that completely shows that I am wrong here, please write it in the comment section, because I would really like to get smarter about Nikola here. And if I'm completely mistaken, then just write it and I will be glad to correct in a later video. That's all for now. Take care of yourself and your money out there, and make sure to subscribe and like the video. Bye.